Gold rich but money poor, Sudan is a country that all too frequently is on the list of poorest nations in the entire world, and it is a great representation of what is common for so many post-colonial African states. This nation faced colonization from Britain, which came in as the empire, took all the gold wealth out, and left a massive division of wealth behind. Decades of this continued resource exploitation continued to cause a greater divide of both access to resources and access of wealth in the country. Once independence eventually came, these things remained. And the decades that followed represented that division of wealth being ever present, and a history of the main importance of the country being holding power came through. It became clear that the only thing that mattered to the British government was wealth and power, and that legacy was left behind. And in the decades since independence, political instability has been common. The different treatment of people has been extremely common, and peace has not been. Peace talks have been fragile. There's been divisions left and rights, to the point where Sudan had to break away from itself to form its own country, in South Sudan, which formed in 2011. The history of British colonialism left a nasty stain on the history of Sudan, and has left it in a place where it lies directly in the Ku Belt, that area of Africa where colonization left behind a legacy of complete control, that power is the only thing that matters, and that the governments that have since inherited the countries since independence have been unable to shake the dark parts of their colonial past, where the people in power use military force, abuse, and more to hold on to what they have. Hello everyone, my name is Reese, and today we are talking about the Sudan crisis. The horrors of what is happening in this nation have been built up for at least the past 12 years, but reflect the greater history of this nation that goes on to decades, and even hundreds of years before, back to British colonization. We're going to talk today about what got us to this point where some of the most horrific acts of terror are happening in this nation, both by separatist groups and by the government itself. And without wasting any more time or me dilly-dallying any longer, let's get into what is happening in Sudan today. The story we are most interested in today connects to the early 2000s, when southern Sudanese groups formed to create an independent state for the mostly Christian population. This conflict saw the Sudanese liberation movement form to rebel against the Sudanese army. The Janjaweed militia formed as a separate group of Sudanese that wanted to battle against the rebels. The Janjaweed gained notoriety for their brutality across the areas of their operation. Eventually, South Sudan was formed and gained independence in 2011 due to the success of the rebel movements. Fighting continued despite the birth of a new nation, and new groups formed. The most notable was the Rapid Support Group, or RSF. They were born out of the Janjaweed militia system and maintained a very similar culture of brutality. The RSF was formed in 2013 to combat the rebel groups in western Sudan, which is known as the Darfur region. The RSF leader worked closely with the leader of Sudan's army to root out different rebel groups. The RSF and army leaders worked together to overthrow a military government in 2021. But after this was completed, they disagreed on the direction the nation of Sudan was meant to move. The RSF leader, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, known often as Hemedti, wanted the RSF to be incorporated into the army of the new government of Sudan, which would give him immense power in the nation. The army leader and de facto president of Sudan, once the military government was thrown out, was Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who didn't support RSF integration because it would have lost him so much power that he was inheriting for helping change the country's leadership. Both positions were held to maintain power in the military state. Continued disagreement led to resentment on both sides, and in April of 2023, shots were fired between both parties. Since the outbreak of the conflict, there has been a power struggle across Sudan. The RSF dominates the southwestern half of the nation, and the army controls the north. The point of contention is the southeastern region of the nation and the capital, Khartoum. At different points in the last 2 years, both the RSF and the army have held control of Khartoum. The army has reestablished state control of the capital by launching attacks from its strongholds on the River Nile. There have been efforts from the international community to broker a peace, but these talks have often failed to manifest into anything real. Fighting between the two sides continues, but the real story lies in what is happening to the people in Sudan. The genocide accusations. The RSF is a militia with a majority Arab Muslim population. The main area they operate is in the Darfur region, which is a mixed-race state with native African groups being the main population. The native African groups, the Darfurians, are the main group affected by the RSF's presence. Now to define genocide. Genocide is the deliberate, violent targeting or persecution of a national, ethnic, or racial group with the intent to destroy the population or nation they represent. Keep that definition in mind as we look through reports on the current crisis. The UNICEF, or United Nations Child Agency, organization began to receive reports that the RSF was sexually abusing non-Arab peoples in the Darfurian region. The worst accounts had victims listed as young as 1 year old. The city of El Janina in Darfur saw thousands killed in an attack that locals are calling an attempt at ethnic cleansing. They claim the RSF wants to, at bare minimum, permanently remove Darfurians from the region. The UN conducted a full investigation that didn't uphold the accusation of genocide, but did express that both the national military and RSF were committing many human rights violations in the Darfur region and parts of eastern Sudan. But that is not all. The U.S. Secretary of State from 2021 until early 2025, Antony Blinken, made the U.S. stance clear. He stated that the RSF militias have targeted fleeing civilians, committed acts of sexual violence, and deliberately targeted specific ethnic groups in their attacks. Concluding his statement by saying, quote, "The RSF and allied militias have committed a genocide in Sudan," end quote. The UN has also made statements regarding the involvement of the United Arab Emirates in the conflict. Many UN experts have said that the Arab Emirates has armed the RSF and said that these claims are credible. These accusations are paired with the legal claim that the Arab Emirates are complicit in a genocide by arming the RSF. On the other side, the Sudanese armed forces are under accusations of receiving weapons from Iran. The RSF took control of El Fasher, the capital of the Darfur region, in late 2025. More accusations were launched at the RSF after video evidence of war crimes being committed in El Fasher surfaced since the RSF took control of that area. The hostile takeover of the regional capital has led to hundreds of thousands being displaced into horrible living conditions. There are over 600,000 people from this region who are now living in camps after they fled the fighting in Darfur. Many of these facing displacement are without access to food, clean water, or safe shelter, as they are now far from their home, which is war-ridden. All of this connects to significant points in recent Sudanese history. From 2003 to 2008, over 200,000 civilians were killed in a conflict between Sudan's government and rebel forces. The International Criminal Court indicted many leaders of the military groups because of how violent things were. The ICC then indicted these leaders on charges of crimes against humanity. In the 5 years between 2003 and 2008, the ICC cited over 300,000 civilian deaths and the displacement of 2.5 million people, all in the Darfur region. One of the main perpetrators was the Janjaweed militia, the same militia that was the forebearer for the RSF. And that brings us to the end where we have to come into a conclusion about what is happening based on the facts we see, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on this. Considering the fact that the UN had to do a full investigation here because of the fact that there was a accusal of genocide in this area, which is not common, despite the fact that the term genocide is being used often because of the genocide in Myanmar and the genocide in Gaza, there is things that have to be considered, and the fact that you even get accused of it is a rare thing. People don't just throw that word around. People who get into trouble don't just throw that word around. There being a full investigation means there was probable cause to search, and there even being probable cause for a genocide is a horrible look. Pair that with the fact that the United States has stated its official stance is that the RSF is committing a genocide. Then pair that with the fact that there is a very diverse racial makeup in this area with a huge gap in power and representation between the native Darfurian people and the Arab Muslim members of the RSF, which have been accused of committing these attacks. Then finally, the history of the Darfur region, which suggests that the Darfurians have been genocided by a group that previously formed the RSF. The Janjaweed, which, as I said before, killed at least 200,000 people of the Darfur region and displaced 2.5 million. Clearly with the intent of targeting people in this region and changing the demographic makeup. And all of that comes for me to say, it is hard for me to hear all that and not say that this sounds like a violent maneuver where people are trying to change the ethnic makeup and power of a nation through violence, which is exactly the definition I gave earlier for the term genocide. Now, is this a genocide? That is for you to decide. It is for the world to decide. It's for us all to look at and see what we think. But it is very clear, at bare minimum, what is happening here is a disgusting moral travesty and is something that we all here in the U.S. should be very well aware of and we should be able to affect. So with that, I am going to leave as many links as I can down in the description to help you guys see if you want to help out with this, see what you can do from afar. Obviously, most people watching this are not politicians. Most of us can't actually go save lives. Almost none of us can actually go save lives in such a war-torn region. But if there's anything we could do to contribute donations, to push our government to do something, to push for peace, whatever that is, I will try and link that down below. And all I can say is thank you for listening, and thank you for being so attentive to a very, very serious issue that is plaguing millions of people in the world. Because no matter where people are from, they are still people in the eyes of me and the eyes of the world. Thank you.